Bob Mueller drew a line today saying he doesn't intend to go beyond his written report in any public testimony. But some House Democrats say tough, and there's a lot they may want to ask him about. Consider that Mueller didn't mention the 30-plus indictments his office issued in today's remarks. He didn't mention the 6 Trump aides, from the campaign chair to Donald Trump's personal lawyer and Trump Org executive who's sitting in prison right now. Mueller also did not address Donald Trump's attacks on the probe, including not only the efforts to remove Mueller, which are in the report, but a lot of other public comments and attempts to obstruct. He also didn't address Bill Barr's conclusion that Mueller's evidence failed to establish Trump had committed obstruction. Think about what a big deal that is, because we've been talking and reporting tonight about the space between Barr and Mueller. Mueller didn't even comment on the way that Barr did that, implying that it was his call to say there was nothing to be charged. And also, Mueller did not really address most of the elements of the specific acts that he investigated about obstruction. Mueller also said only Congress can formally accuse a sitting president of wrongdoing. Today, he never used the I word in his remarks, although, as eagle-eyed Maya Wiley and others have pointed out, even just on this broadcast, it's something he did discuss, at least in the footnotes of his report. So given all those open questions, we want to dig into what's left unsaid. I am joined by NBC's Julia Ainsley, who has decamped from her post at the Justice Department to our Washington bureau, and that we're thankful that you are a part of our coverage, and former federal prosecutor Glenn Kirshner, who worked directly for Bob Mueller in the District of Columbia U.S. Attorney's Office. Glenn, you obviously have come on here before and praised Bob Mueller, and many people understand that. But even you, I think, would have to admit there were things that he chose not to address today that could have been useful.
Ari, I'm going to make the case, controversial though it may be, that Bob Mueller does not need to testify before Congress. And here's why. First of all, prosecutors don't testify about what witnesses said. In courtrooms around the country every day, judges instruct juries that the words of a prosecutor and the words of a defense attorney are not evidence. The evidence are the words that come from the mouths of the witnesses. That's point number one. We don't need Bob Mueller to say, oh, Don McGahn told us that the president told him to fire special counsel, and when he refused, the president told him to lie. We need Don McGahn to say that to the American people and to Congress. Number two, I suspect that a congressional appearance by Bob Mueller would turn into a circus. The Democrats would probably want to ask him about, oh, I don't know, Hillary Clinton's emails. And the Democrats would want to...
Point number one is important because, as you say, we're not looking to do a lot of hearsay and redo. Point number two, I'm going to call you on. That's a fine argument against congressional hearings for now and for a long while, the way they go. Before I turn to Julia, I want you to address the issue in today's remarks. He did choose to speak about certain things. He downplayed any issues with Donald Trump's handpicked AG. Do you think it would have been more constructive to meet them head on?
I mean, I would love to have a beer with Bob Mueller and for 12 hours hear everything that he thinks about the probe. But that great intro that you did with all of those questions, Ari, they're all interesting. They're all things we want to know the answer to. But none of them go to the core of whether this president committed impeachable offenses. And to get to that and to cull away everything else, we need the witnesses.
Julia, you've had a front row seat. You have been dealing with a lot of the primary folks close to this. What is your view of those unanswered questions? And as we reflect on this day, what's your view of what we've learned?
Well, I think we've learned that Robert Mueller did leave the door wide open to Congress to come in and answer some of these questions, because you're right, he didn't get into the I word. He really hasn't answered the fundamental question that he was charged with, which was, did the president commit a crime? Now, he went back today and said that he was appointed to find out if there was conspiracy between the Russian government and the Trump campaign. And so it was worthwhile to look at all of these things, even if you couldn't indict a sitting president, because there are people around the president who need to be investigated, and it's important to memorialize the evidence as you have it and not wait until this president is out of office. And of course, he wanted to explain why he wanted to look at obstruction, because that is at the heart of our justice system.
Right.
But I think the key quote that we all jotted down in real time as quickly as we could is that he said, The criminal justice system is not the place you know this part.
Congress.
The criminal justice system is not the place where you take the wrongdoings of a president. So he's leaving that door wide open for Congress.
Which, again, to be clear, is not the impression that Barr left when he said, oh, it's a jump ball. I got to deal with it. And that's so important. I want to play one more part of Mueller since it was him speaking out today. Glenn, do you know the expression, word is bond?
Word is bond.
Sure. Bob Mueller gave his version of that here, and I think it bears repeating. We touched on this earlier in our coverage, but for viewers around the country watching, he is saying very clearly, my word is my bond, my report is my testimony. And as you've been arguing, Glenn, it's now time for Congress to put up or maybe shut up. Take a look.
Now, I hope and expect this to be the only time that I will speak to you in this manner. There has been discussion about an appearance before Congress. Any testimony from this office would not go beyond our report. The work speaks for itself. And the report is my testimony.
Glenn, your bottom line?
His word is his bond, his report is his testimony, and now we can spend lots of time over the coming weeks debating whether Bob Mueller will or won't testify. Will it be public, behind closed doors, or a hybrid? Or we can focus on why the White House is trying to prevent people from coming before Congress and testifying when, frankly, they have no right to stomp down on those witnesses. That, I think, is what people should be focusing on at this point.
And Julia, I'm over on time, but in a sentence or two, do you think this is the last time we'll hear from Bob Mueller on this issue?
It appeared to be so. The last thing I would say is that, to Glenn's point, when the president says Congress is having a do-over, it's clear from Robert Mueller that it's not a do-over. In fact, it might be the necessary course of action.
Glenn and Julia, thank you so much. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.